Hello, and welcome to Neos. It looks like this is your first time using Neos, so let's go over a few basics. First, grabbing things. Reach out for the cube with your controller and press and hold the grip button to grab it. Excellent! You can also move things by pointing at them from a distance with your laser and pressing the grip button. Remote grabbing doesn't rotate objects. Now place the cube inside the glowing sphere. Awesome. Now let's try moving around. Do you see that cube in the distance? Tilt the joystick forward or press the touchpad to activate the teleporter and bring the cube back here. Awesome. Now let's
On All In.
I know, Mr. Manafort, haven't spoken to him in a long time.
The man who ran Donald Trump's campaign accused of witness tampering.
That's what he said. That's what I said.
Tonight, new details on what the special counsel is alleging and why it could have major implications for President Trump. Plus, why the Trump team is preparing for a subpoena fight with Robert Mueller. Then,
is it absolutely necessary, General, to separate parents from children when they are detained or apprehended at the border?
Yes.
exclusive new reporting on the exploding number of children being separated from their parents by our government, as Jeff Sessions tries to explain it away.
Most are not infants, most are teenagers, although we do have a number of young ones now.
And the President of the United States snubbed at the White House.
Thank you very much, everybody.
But All In starts right now.
Stand beside her and guide her.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. The former campaign chairman to the President of the United States could be spending the summer in jail. That's after getting caught doing something that the president himself should probably take very serious note of. Allegedly trying to tamper with witnesses to get them to lie to federal law enforcement. In a court filing late last night, special counsel Robert Mueller accused Paul Manafort of violating the terms of his bail by repeatedly contacting two former associates to get their stories straight about Manafort's secret lobbying work in Ukraine. That work is the subject of dozens of criminal charges that Manafort now faces. One of the former associates told investigators they explicitly understood Manafort's messages to be an effort to, quote, suborn perjury. In other words, to get him to commit a crime. According to the new filing, Manafort enlisted the help of a Russian-Ukrainian henchman, referred to only as Person A in court documents, but news reports have identified him as Manafort's longtime business associate, a man we've talked about before, Konstantin Klimenik. And according to another court filing back in March, FBI agents assisting the special counsel's office assessed that Person A, aka Klimenik, has ties to a Russian intelligence service. Mueller's latest filing suggests Manafort was in touch with Klimenik about these witnesses as recently as April, just a couple months ago. Which, if true, think about this for a second. The president's campaign chairman, the guy that ran his campaign, who headed up his whole delegate operation at the convention, months after being indicted on numerous fraud and conspiracy charges, after being put under house arrest and forced to wear not one, but two ankle monitors for each of his upcoming trials, after his business partner, Rick Gates, the president's deputy campaign chairman, pleaded guilty and agreed to cooperate with the probe. After all of that, Paul Manafort is still, according to Mueller at least, conspiring with a suspected Russian agent to deceive investigators and break the law. A spokesperson for Manafort replied to the Mueller filing in a statement, Mr. Manafort is innocent and nothing about this latest allegation changes our defense. We will do our talking in court. His legal team has until Friday to respond officially ahead of a June 15th hearing in Washington, D.C. This would not be the first time Manafort colluded with his Russian friend to defy the court. According to Mueller, the two teamed up a few months ago to ghostwrite an op-ed defending Manafort's work in Ukraine in violation of a judge's gag order. They were previously in touch throughout 2016 while Manafort was working on the Trump campaign. This Russian henchman, Kaliminik, serving as Manafort's liaison to powerful Russian interests. It was Kaliminik who Manafort contacted about leveraging his new role on the campaign back in that summer to curry favor with a billionaire Russian oligarch. Writing in an email, you may remember, "I assume you have shown our friends my media coverage, right? How do we use to get whole?" Besides the Trump Tower meeting, that's about as close as we've come to a smoking gun on collusion. Like Manafort and like Manafort's former boss, this guy, Kaliminik, is not acting like someone with nothing to hide. More recently, according to the New York Times, Ukrainian law enforcement allowed Kaliminik to flee where else.
Hello and welcome to Neos. It looks like this is your first time using Neos, so let's go over a few basics. First, grabbing things. Reach out for the cube with your controller and press and hold the grip button to grab it.
What do you make of this latest filing from the special counsel?
What I make of this filing is a desperate, self-destructive act by someone who is digging deeper into quicksand, not only for himself, but also for the President of the United States, because Paul Manafort has intimate knowledge about the President's involvement in potential collusion. It gives the lie, literally, to Trump's claims about a witch hunt and a hoax, because here's Paul Manafort.
Hello and welcome to Neos. It looks like this is your first time using Neos, so let's...
felony in witness tampering, which is going to make a judge very, very angry and gives the special counsel even more leverage over him.
There also seems to be a parallel a little bit between what the behavior we're watching from Paul Manafort and what we're learning more and more about the White House. Are you worried that people in the White House are engaging in sort of parallel activities as the special counsel's investigation draws closer?
What's common is an utter contempt for the rule of law, a sense that the normal rules don't apply. And remember also that before even all of the other violations of the bail terms happened, Paul Manafort's home was raided, a no-knock, pre-dawn raid that could be justified to a federal judge issuing a warrant only on the representation with plausible evidence that evidence would be destroyed. Another act of contempt for the rule.
It looks like this is your first time using Neos.
I'm extremely concerned that this obstruction of justice involving the White House as well as Paul Manafort and the people in that orbit will infect the special counsel's investigation, and that's the reason why I hope my Republicans colleagues stand up and speak out to protect the special counsel against the potential interference.
Two items from the president today. One, a tweet saying that he wished Sessions had told him he would recuse, otherwise he wouldn't have named him Attorney General, which seems to be an admission that the Russia probe was foremost on his mind when deciding who should be the chief law enforcement officer of the United States.
And one of the reasons why he thought that the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, should not recuse himself was he knew there was no collusion. In other words, he is implicitly alleging the knowledge that led Sessions to recuse himself, which was the right decision for Sessions to make. So the level of absurdity simply increases. Donald Trump is shattering all the norms, and unfortunately, as one of my colleagues has called it, the water boiling with the frog in the water. As the temperature rises, we lose track of how absurdly contemptuous of the rule of law the president is becoming.
To that end, a story in the Washington Post that he is now obsessed with pardons. We've watched him hand out pardons, the Dinesh D'Souza one last week. White House official this week said Trump is obsessed with pardons, describing them as the president's new favorite thing to talk about. He may sign a dozen or more in the next 2 months, the person added. Are you worried that he is moving towards using the pardon power essentially as an extension of his attempts to sabotage the investigation into himself and his campaign?
The message from all this talk about pardons to potential witnesses like Flynn or Manafort or Papadopoulos or others is that it could come into play. And yes, I'm profoundly worried about it. Some of our Republican colleagues have spoken up. Today, the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, said it would be wrong. Yesterday, it was Chuck Grassley, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. But there has to be a really resounding emphasis that there is no power of the president to pardon himself. That has been settled by a 1974 Office of Legal Counsel opinion when the issue was raised by Richard Nixon, and that's because no one can be a judge of his own case, but also this indiscriminate use of pardon power for political purposes, as indicated by the D'Souza pardon and by the talk about Martha Stewart being pardoned, also has to be countered very aggressively and vigorously.
All right, Senator Richard Blumenthal, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
For more on the witness tampering allegations against Paul Manafort, I'm joined by MSNBC national security